Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here at the TRQ Studios. They've been kind enough to let me come here and make some videos for you. Well, today's video is all about how to make your truck last forever. My philosophy is to think like a semi-truck owner, and those trucks can last 500,000 miles or more, perhaps a lot more. And they do this with a very strict maintenance schedule. They're always going around checking things over. In fact, they even do an inspection, or they're supposed to do an inspection before they go out driving on one of their runs. So if you adopt that same philosophy with your truck, I imagine it's going to last a very long time. Now, truck tires are not like passenger car tires. In fact, not only are they bigger, but they're designed to carry heavier loads and just have a different overall design, not to mention that they're more expensive. As a result of that, you want to make sure that they last as long as possible. And one of the ways to do that is, first and foremost, keep them properly inflated. And the way to find out what that proper inflation is, you can find that inside usually the driver's door jamb. But while I'm looking at the tires, I inspect the sidewalls for any damage or any issues that are out here. But also I run my hand along the tread to see if there's anything that's chunky, is what I call it. And if I do feel something like that, it could indicate an alignment problem, or sometimes this can happen from a lack of tire rotation. So a lack of maintenance can actually ruin your tires. So make sure that you keep an eye on your tires, make sure they're at the proper pressure, keep them rotated when necessary, and they will last a good long time. When you're rotating the tires on your truck, I strongly recommend using a torque wrench to tighten down the lug nuts and in a crisscross pattern. I say this because with trucks, you're dealing with a lot more weight, a lot more responsibility, so to speak, and personally, I want to make sure that my lug nuts are torqued to spec, and to do that, torque wrench. Don't forget about the spare. That also needs to be checked. You can find any number of power plants under the hood of your truck, everything from a 4-cylinder to a big diesel engine. Each one of those engines has its own requirements and maintenance schedule, and you can find that information in your owner's manual. But I'm going to do a general overview here with this truck. The things I like to check are the battery. I actually test it, and I also check the terminals and make sure that they're clean. Check the coolant level, and FYI, with the coolant level, if the engine is hot, do not remove the radiator cap from the radiator. It's much better to look at one of these clear reservoirs here if you're going to check the coolant level. Check air filters. There may be more than one, and there may also be more than one battery. Check the oil level. If you want to know what type of oil your engine uses, that information is usually located right here on the oil cap. The transmission fluid level, again, as far as checking the transmission fluid level, refer to your owner's manual and find out what the procedure is for that. Drive belts, just generally looking the engine over for any issues that might be. And then we come over to brake fluid. I've got a tip for you on this. My trick for brake fluid is this. If the brake fluid is getting low, that means that your friction material on your brakes are getting warm and they require further inspection. So if you see low brake fluid, take a good close look at your brakes and see if they're worn out. As long as we're on the topic of brake fluid goes bad after a period of time and needs periodic replacement. Again, that service interval can be found in your owner's manual. Another important check to do while you're doing your truck maintenance is make sure all the lights work. Turn on the headlights, check the bright lights, check the turn signals, all the important things. And on a truck, you might have lights on the roof. So be sure to check all the lights on your truck, and that might take a minute. It's a good idea to get under your truck and look for leaks, look for loose components. And the way I look for loose components, if you see yellow dust around a fastener or a suspension part or something like that, it's usually a pretty good indication that it's loose. But in addition to looking for loose suspension parts, you just want to look for anything out of the ordinary. And luckily, trucks are a little bit higher off the ground and you may not even have to lift it off the ground. But the idea is to put your eyes on all the moving parts and make sure there's nothing that's starting to become a problem that could lead to a breakdown down the road. That's the entire reason we're doing this maintenance. When you're under the rear of the truck, take a look at things like the suspension, the brake lines, also the brake cables that go to things. Sometimes these can get rotted or have issues, and the brake lines sometimes can get corroded. This is the rear differential. This also has periodic fluid changes. On this particular style, you have to remove this cover in order to drain it, and you remove this to fill it after you put this back on. Make sure you use the correct fluid. The information can be found in your owner's manual as far as what fluid to use and when to change it. On four-wheel drive trucks, you'll have a transfer case, and this is normally mounted to the back of the transmission. This also requires periodic service, fluid changes mainly. This is the fill plug and this is the drain plug. And this is part of the four-wheel drive system that takes power from the transmission, transfers it to the rear wheels and also to the front wheels, hence the name transfer case. It's also a good idea to put your eyes on the exhaust and look for any potential leaks, which usually show up as these black sooty spots, mainly at things like joints and connections. So just look over the exhaust and see if you see any exhaust leaks or any excessive rust that could mean a pipe's about to let go, because you'd better address it now rather than have it fall off while you're driving down the road. This is the front differential for this truck. This is the drain plug and this is the fill plug here. This also requires periodic fluid changes. The type of fluid used and when to change it, that information can be found inside the owner's manual, but you also may have to remove some covers to gain access to this to change the fluid. A tip for finding suspected leaks is to take a piece of cardboard and slip it underneath the area you suspect is leaking, leave it sit there overnight and pull it back out. And if you see something on it, well, you've confirmed the leak. If there's nothing there, then move on. Once you get the wheel off, inspect the brakes. Don't worry about rust so much. In fact, we don't really have to worry about these brakes at all since they're all brand new. Also look at all your suspension components, see if you see any issues there. Brake lines, are they looking dry rotted or cracked? Are there any issues with those? Basically put your eyes on absolutely everything. And I'm noticing here that there's a grease fitting on top of this joint. Not all vehicles have these, but if you do have these, it's great because you can lubricate these and extend the life of these ball joints. While you're doing a maintenance, it's a good idea to check those wiper blades and replace them if necessary. Me, I replace mine every spring and fall just to be on the safe side. A lot of us tow things with our trucks, and if your truck is equipped with a tow hitch, I recommend inspecting it during the maintenance process and make sure it's securely attached to the frame and there's no rust there that looks like it will compromise the integrity of that trailer hitch. I also like to inspect the electrical connections, and if there's any green corrosion or anything on there, what I like to do is clean that up with a little bit of contact cleaner or maybe a wire brush. I also spray a little bit of white lithium grease down on top of these terminals sometimes to help prevent future corrosion. Sometimes that helps. Anyway, be sure to check the electrical connections and all of your towing equipment to make sure it's in tip-top shape. This is my truck, affectionately known as Dad's truck, and I did an entire video series where I rebuilt the engine, replaced the transmission, rebuilt the rear differential, the suspension, the brakes, a whole bunch of stuff. I'll link that down in the description to make it easy for you to find. But one of the things that I did during that rebuild is I kept an eye on future maintenance, and I did a couple of things to this truck that you might consider doing to your truck. One of those things was I replaced the automatic transmission oil pan with one with a drain plug in it. That makes changing the automatic transmission fluid in this truck that much easier. I did the same thing to the rear differential, and if your truck is four-wheel drive, you can do the same thing to the front differential, thus making your maintenance easier to do. If it's easier to do, you're more likely to do it. I promise you, if you maintain your truck, it will last a good long time. If you don't and neglect it, well, you might break down and might be sad about that. One of my viewers, Mike Choi, takes his vehicle into his local mechanic, and he asked him, he said, what are the common issues that you've seen with my vehicle? And I think this is a brilliant idea. So if you want to know the kind of things that go on with your truck, you can do this, and if you go see a local mechanic, I suggest you bring baked goods or buy them lunch. Or you can do a Google search and find out what the common issues on your truck are. Find out what those common issues are, address those issues during your maintenance interval, and your truck will be nice and reliable, and that's the way you want it. Several times throughout this video, I have referred to the owner's manual being the place that you go to find out what your truck needs. The people that engineered your truck know exactly what it needs to keep it going for a long time and keep it reliable. That information is contained within this owner's manual. I strongly recommend you go through it and follow those procedures. Your truck will last a long time and be a lot more reliable. I want to thank my friends at TRQ for letting me come out and use their facility to shoot this video for you. I'll link them down in the description along with additional information and videos. I'm Eric the Car Guy. Thank you so much for watching today. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'll see you next time. Have fun with your truck.